Are you a thoughtful leader? Maybe you are. Maybe you think you are. Let's find out. I'm Mindy Gibbins-Klein. I'm author of The Thoughtful Leader and host of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. Thoughtful leadership is all about thought leadership that goes above and beyond. Thought leadership that is truly new and original, exciting, disruptive, maybe even groundbreaking. Because let's face it, we need to raise the bar. My guests and I are absolutely obsessed with finding truly original thought leadership, and I'm going to bring you so many exciting ideas and opportunities, things for you to think about, and chances for you to push your thinking that you'll be very glad you tuned in. So thanks so much for checking out Thoughtful Leadership and the Thoughtful Leader podcast. I look forward to connecting with you very, very soon. Welcome to the show. My guest today is the amazing thoughtful leader, Amanda Foo-Ryland, who is talking to us at the moment from New Zealand. Hello, Amanda.
Hi there, how are you? It's great to be connected, and it's nighttime here, which is kind of odd because it's 8 a.m. there.
Well, when the listeners get to hear us, we have no idea what time it will be for them. So it's great that we have all this technology. So I will get to why you're in New Zealand. But first, can you just tell everybody a bit about yourself and your background, how you got to where you are today?
Well, I started my career working in the cosmetic industry. I worked for the Estee Lauder Corporation and had a fantastic 16-year career with them. Amazing company to work for. And I started off on the counter, just, helping to serve people, looking after people, and then became very, very quickly appealed to me to get into the education department. So I started to teach people about how to offer service, how to care for people, and of course, how to sell, because it was cosmetics. And really enjoyed that connection of standing in front of a group of people and presenting. And so went from there and then went into my field, which I'm fascinated about, which is NeuroLinguistic Programming, and learned really much more about the neurology. And we actually now call it neural coding. So we refer to ourselves as neural coders. And I teach people all over the world how to do that. So we run courses here in New Zealand, in Australia, in London, and also in the Algarve in Portugal, teaching people how to help others delete programs, neurological programs that don't work for them, and install ones that do. So it's fast and it lasts, which is just incredible.
Superb. Can you give us the plain English version of neuro programs, whatever you just called it?
Yeah, it's really technical. It's called NeuroLinguistic Programming. It is not a marketeer's dream. And it was, in many respects, I was interviewed here on Breakfast TV with NZTV, and the interviewer asked me, what is NeuroLinguistic Programming? And it kind of tongue-twisted her. She couldn't even pronounce it, just like yourself. And I said to her, look, the easiest way to describe it is it's a little like having an app on your phone. And if you imagine that's neurology as opposed to an app, if there's an app that's on your phone that's not working, all you do is delete it. You just go, I don't need that anymore, and you delete it. And then you start to search for an app that works, that is going to do the job. So you go, oh, I'll get this one from the App Store, and you install it. So in many respects, we've moved away from neurolinguistic programming, and we now just call it neural coding. So we work with a client to identify the problem, we delete the problem, and then we install a solution. And it really is fast, as I mentioned earlier, and it lasts. So it's great to work with people that perhaps have come from a model where they've had a lot of counselling or a lot of psychology sessions and maybe got a little bit of change. But what they notice is within 3 sessions, they can really make significant changes to themselves with the neural coding. Hopefully that explains it a little bit better.
We're talking about the brain. We're talking about beliefs. Because the whole thing, neurology sounds like a brain surgeon, which I think actually in a way is like a virtual brain surgeon. But let's talk about why people get into these situations. And I'd like to understand why you were so passionate about, I'll call it NLP and neural coding, because many people know NLP.
Yeah, sure. I became passionate about it because I stumbled into the personal development field, really. My uncle passed away quite suddenly, and I was here in New Zealand, and I couldn't go to his funeral. I was over here. So I called my auntie and I said, look, when I come back to England, I really would like to help out in any way I can. And I'll come and spend a couple of days with you and help sort through Uncle Peter's clothes. And she said that would be really helpful. So the last thing that I actually helped with was sorting out his briefcase. And when I opened up his briefcase, inside was, unbeknown to anybody, he'd registered to become a life coach with the Newcastle University in the UK. And he was doing this remotely online, and he hadn't told anybody. And so I rang the university and explained what had happened and said, would you mind if I took my Uncle Peter's place? So they agreed. And so I studied for 2 years online, which was kind of a first, because this is going back, kind of 2006. This was quite a new movement. And I qualified and I started to work with clients. And I suddenly realized that whilst I could help clients with strategies and systems and perhaps cool little techniques, one thing that I didn't have in the toolbox was to help them change things at an unconscious level. So if I was working with a CEO of a company that really wanted to excel in their career, but actually fundamentally believed that they were not capable or didn't deserve it, didn't matter what bells and whistles we talked about. If their belief system didn't align with what their aspirations were, they were never going to make that. And this is where the field of looking underneath the bonnet, if you like, of what's happening in the neurology really appealed to me. So in 2005, I embarked on my learning journey, and I'm still on it all these years later. Even though I'm educating others in how to become coaches using these modalities, I'm trained in NeuroLinguistic Programming, timeline therapy, and I've got a doctorate in clinical hypnotherapy as well. It's just a lifelong passion now. And what I love about it is the more we understand about the brain, the more we don't understand, because it's constantly changing. The brain has plasticity, so it's constantly evolving and changing depending on the environment, which is exciting. And this was only identified in 1984. Brain plasticity. So it's a field that we will never, ever grasp. And that to me is really exciting.
A field we will never, ever grasp. Most people who listen to the show want to not only grasp something, but become experts with deep expertise and know that they've done it. So sorry, listeners, you will never, ever grasp anything to do with the brain, which is pretty much everything. And that's the wisdom from Dr. Amanda Foo-Ryland. I'm half joking and I'm half not. People know me. I'm always provoking, half joking and provoking, and I'm a poet and I know it. So what I would like you to talk about, if you're willing, is how you've blended your own personal journey with this changing career, because you really have set off on an incredible journey, and I think people need to know about it. So tell everybody whatever you want to tell us.
Sure. Life was just, rosy. And I had been in a beautiful, long, loving relationship with my husband, Keith. And then I was doing these wonderful challenges of running across Portugal, which was 7 marathons in 7 days to raise money for charity. And then I cycled from Land's End to John O'Groats, and life was rosy. I'd written a book, and from the outside looking in, everything looked great. And for me as well, I was happy and healthy and everything's fabulous. And then the first curveball hit, and that was that my left kidney, it seemed, had a tumor in it, which was a cancerous tumor. And so most people know the song I Left My Heart in San Francisco. Well, I left my kidney in Christchurch, New Zealand, because that's where it was taken out. And I set myself a really interesting mindset goal. And that was that I'd never been in hospital, only ever to visit people. So I decided to embark on this experience as though it was an adventure I hadn't chosen to go on, but I was on it anyway. So I might as well look at it through adventurous eyes. And that changed a lot for me, because what it allowed me to do was be curious about what was the operating theatre even looking like. I'd never even seen one, only in, TV shows. So I said to the anaesthetist, please don't make me feel relaxed or give me anything before we go to the operating theatre. I'd really like to meet the team. I'd like to see what the operating theatre looks like. And it was really great because, there's a team of 6 people. working with the surgeon. They all had like funky outfits. They were going to listen to Queen while they were operating on me. And I was amazed at how super shiny the operating theatre was and how very small the table was. And in fact, she even said, maybe just hop up on the table and we'll strap you down once we've kind of knocked you out. So I was able to look at it through this kind of childlike curiosity and wonderment. And that changed a lot about how I viewed myself. So I wasn't a cancer victim. I wasn't a cancer sufferer. I wasn't a patient. I was just a person going on a journey, and that journey I labelled was an adventure. I set my goal to run a marathon 4 months later, which I did. And then if somebody had tapped me on the shoulder the day that I came out of surgery in Christchurch and said, a year tomorrow, your husband will pass away of the same disease, I would have said, just no way. I'm the person that had the diagnosis, and Keith's very healthy. But yet a year and a day after I came out of surgery, I lost Keith to the same disease. And this time it was, he had cancer of the stomach. So that was another huge curveball. And I got pretty cross with the universe. I did what most people do in grief, and that was kind of just hide away for a little while. I didn't see any clients. I just kind of licked my wounds, if you like, and started to regroup, because it was really such a big shock for everybody, and it was very quick. And then I was running around the lake here in Queenstown with a beautiful friend of mine, Vicky Onions, and she turned and she kind of stopped in her tracks and she said, I've had this epiphany, Amanda. I imagine this huge canvas, and half of it is beautifully painted, rich tapestry filled with all this beautiful colour and texture. And that's from when you were born until the point that Keith died. And the other half is completely blank. And you've got the toolbox to be able to be the architect of your own life. So I said, Vicky, you're right. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to get designing. One thing I was very aware of was that I was never going to be a sole traveller on this journey. I'd been in a long-term relationship when I was very young for 10 years with a very hot fireman. I was then married for 5 years to a basketball player, and that didn't work out. We got divorced, but very amicable. And then met Keith, and I was with Keith for 19 years. And I recognised that I wanted another life partner to travel the journey with. And so I set an intention to fall in love again, to have more magic in my life. I wanted to go to Burning Man and enjoy the wonders of what that might bring. And I did fall in love, but this time I fell in love with a woman. And this woman is called Sarah Foo-Ryland. And that probably suggests that we did get married, which we did. But what was interesting was just that shift in people that knew me really well would say things like, Amanda, you're not gay. What are you doing? You're not thinking straight. This is a phase you're going through. You're experimenting. But yeah, I knew in my heart that this was my partner that was going to travel the end of the journey with me. Even my own mother said to me, God love her, she said, Amanda, you're not gay, you're grieving. Yeah, so it was quite an interesting time for me. And I learned very quickly to walk my own truth and keep honest to what I knew in my heart, rather than be distracted by what other people felt I should be doing. Even though they felt I was vulnerable, I think vulnerability is a huge strength and a huge quality, providing we can walk in our truth and we know the direction that we're walking in. So I ignored people. I in fact deleted what a lot of people said and created something called a delete button, which allowed me to delete information neurologically. And so Sarah and I then decided that we wanted to embark on getting married and having a family. And about a month before Sarah and I were due to get married, we were doing another enormous challenge, cycling from Courchevel in the French Alps to York, raising money for charity. And on the last day, we had another curveball. And Sarah's mother, who just turned 60 years of age, lived in Perth in Western Australia, and she was diving, collecting crayfish, very, very experienced diver, and she was attacked and killed by a great white shark. And that was literally 4 weeks before we were due to get married. So, once again, what my life has given testament to is how powerful these tools are. And Sarah and I have said that there's absolutely no way we would be in the resourceful state that we both are without the tools. We would have probably unraveled pretty quickly in light of our curveballs. And so, we lost Sarah's mum, which was very tragic, and we still went ahead and got married. And then we decided that we wanted to start a family. And I was 52 when we started this journey. I'm now 54, and lots of people said to me, what are you thinking? Like, you're crazy. You know, you should be thinking about becoming a nana, never mind becoming a mother for the first time. I'd always wanted to be a mum. It just never worked out for Keith and I. I got involved in an orphanage and still am in Bali, and raised lots of money for the children there and connected to that. But, you know, nothing like having your own children. So Sarah and I decided to go down the IVF route, and we were unsuccessful on 4 occasions. We didn't expect that. We just thought there's just one component missing. This is not an infertility issue. However, we were unsuccessful. And interestingly, a lot of people said, you know, IVF's really hard. It's a hard journey. You know, it affects your hormones. And we just, again, decided to treat it like an adventure. We chose a clinic in Marbella, which is a nice place to visit. And we stayed in nice hotels, and we would always go out for dinner, regardless of what the outcome was. And then finally, we were successful. And we were very successful on the 9th of May, 2019, when 2 baby twin boys were born in Invercargill in New Zealand. So they're about to turn 2 on the 9th of May. And yeah, we have beautiful Noah and beautiful Jasper. And so my life has completely changed. And when I think about my friend Vicky talking about that canvas that was blank, I think I've probably painted the best version of what that looks like for me.
I'm speechless, and I'm sure all the listeners have their jaws dropping down to the ground. I purposely asked you to share without giving any hint of anything, even though you and I have spoken before. It is a stunning way to paint the canvas. And thank you so much for sharing and sharing so openly. The thing that got me when you were talking is the labels, and you know, they're based on beliefs, I guess. You're not gay, you're grieving. You know, that's just amazing. You know, all these labels are not always helpful. And we all do this. So I'm guessing, in fact, I know that none of the listeners have gone through what you've gone through. Certainly not everything. We've all lost people close to us. We all know someone who's had cancer or had it ourselves. And we've all had dreams that kind of went in a different direction. But the number of curveballs, to use your phrase, that you have contended with, you know, it's amazing. So we've heard about your challenges, and we've heard about your resilience. And, you know, you and Sarah have a great repository of resources and attitude and everything like that. But what is a current frustration for you? I know you're very positive, and I always like to kind of push the boundaries here. What's a current frustration or even irritant in your life?
I think personally for me, I would like to have more than 86,400 seconds every day. That would be helpful. So for me, what I'm challenged with is the work that we do is really meaningful, because we're helping people live a better life where sometimes they don't even believe that's possible. And yet it's creating that balance, because the business, we've never been busier. One thing COVID has done is it's created this conversation where people are talking about mental health. And we're seeing people online that have never, ever reached out and asked for help before. So with that comes the challenge of creating that beautiful balance. And, you know, I'm now 54, my boys are 2. And there's one thing that most mums give me advice on is spend time with your children, watch them grow, because it goes by so quickly. So my frustration is probably a daily frustration of making sure we get that balance as best as we possibly can, and yet still respecting and honouring the reason that I believe I'm here is to help people in an easy, painless way achieve a better life for themselves, but then honouring that myself as well, kind of walking my talk fully and completely.
And I guess this is why you're training many other people to become practitioners, because then everybody can share the work or the joy or the whatever you want to call it. But, you know, you can't possibly help every single person who comes to you. I can't. None of our listeners and friends who are speakers, trainers, coaches can help enough people on a one-to-one or even one-to-many basis. So it's really great that you're sharing the work by training other people up, and then the work will carry on. So I can't believe we are coming to the end of the interview. I have about 500 questions I want to ask you, but I think the listeners and viewers will reach out to you. All the contact details and information are in the show notes, guys. So do reach out to her and find out more. Is there one last piece of advice? I know, like coaching and asking questions, but I'm asking you, Amanda, do you have a piece of advice for people listening, the one thing you'd like them to remember?
Yeah, I think the piece of advice is this. When we were all born, we were born whole. We came with every single thing that we need inside of us, pre-programmed as an app, ready to navigate the life's journey. And I want to kind of remind people that you are so much more than you ever think you are. You're an absolute genius. And in fact, in the space of time that you've listened to this interview, which is, coming up to 25 minutes, your neurology has created 50,000 neural networks without you even knowing. So you've got a supercomputer inside your head. You are infinitely capable of doing far more than you ever could think. And so my recommendation would be to know that, even though you may not believe it.
That's it. That's the perfect way to end this time together. We'll see if we can get you back on the show at some point, but people are clamoring to talk about thoughtful leadership, and I know why, because it's probably one of the most important things at the moment. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, Dr. Amanda Foo-Ryland.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Thoughtful Leader, and I hope it's inspired you to be more thoughtful as a leader in your business. Please consider subscribing and leaving a review. An important question for you. Do you want to create a culture of thought leadership in your organization? My best-selling book, The Thoughtful Leader, is available now on Amazon and many other sites in paperback, ebook, and audiobook formats. Please visit www.mindygk.com for more great content. That's www.mindygk.com. Speak to you again soon.